The fist connected with her face before anyone could react.
Let go of me!
Blood exploded from Maya Reyes's split eyebrow, bright red drops scattering across the concrete like scattered dreams. She was 20 years old, wearing the plain uniform of kitchen staff, and Senior Chief Derek Callahan had just made the worst mistake of his 19-year Navy career. 142 SEAL candidates watched in frozen silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. What Callahan didn't know, what nobody on that training ground knew, was that he hadn't just punched a civilian kitchen worker. He had just triggered a protocol that would destroy him within 7 minutes. Coronado, California. 0530 hours. The day everything changed. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel and follow Maya's journey to the very end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The grinder at Naval Special Warfare Command earned its name honestly. Generations of SEAL candidates had bled on this concrete, cried on this concrete, quit on this concrete. The ones who survived called it sacred ground. The ones who didn't called it hell. Maya Reyes had walked across this ground every morning for 8 months, carrying breakfast supplies, invisible in her plain kitchen uniform. She knew every crack in the concrete, every stain that wouldn't wash out every ghost that lingered in the pre-dawn darkness. She also knew that Senior Chief Derek Callahan had been watching her for 3 weeks. Not the way men sometimes watched young women. This was different. This was predator alertness. The instinct of a man who had survived 3 combat deployments, recognizing something that didn't quite fit. Maya had been careful. So careful. But Callahan hadn't earned his silver stars by missing details. "You!" he called out that morning, his voice cutting through the California fog like a blade. "Kitchen girl, stop!" Maya stopped. Her heart rate elevated by exactly 4 beats per minute, controlled, measured nothing that would betray her training. She turned slowly, keeping her hands visible, her posture submissive. "Yes, Senior Chief." 142 SEAL candidates stood in formation behind Callahan, exhausted from Hell Week, covered in mud and salt, and the particular misery that buds inflicted on everyone who dared to attempt it. They watched with the hollow eyes of men who had learned that anything could become entertainment when you were sleep-deprived enough. Callahan walked toward her. Slow, deliberate. The walk of a man who had never been challenged on his own ground. "What's your name?" "Maya Rodriguez, Senior Chief. Kitchen Support Staff." "Rodriguez." He said it like he was tasting something bitter. "How long you been working here, Rodriguez?" 8 months, Senior Chief." 8 months. He stopped 3 feet from her, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath, see the broken capillaries in his nose from years of drinking. "And in 8 months, nobody ever told you that civilians don't walk across my grinder during training." Maya kept her eyes down, submissive, invisible. "I apologize, Senior Chief. I was told this was the fastest route to—" "I don't care what you were told." His hand shot out and grabbed her arm, hard, the kind of grip designed to leave bruises to remind someone of their place in the hierarchy. "You don't belong here," Callahan said. "This ground is for warriors, not for kitchen trash." Maya didn't resist, didn't pull away. 8 months of training, 8 months of watching, 8 months of waiting, all of it hinged on this moment. "I understand, Senior Chief. I'll use the other route from now." He threw her. Not pushed. Threw. The full rotational force of a 220-pound combat veteran who had spent 30 years learning how to hurt people efficiently. Maya hit the concrete hard, her shoulder taking most of the impact, her head bouncing once against the unforgiving surface. Stars exploded behind her eyes. Real pain, the kind you couldn't fake. She heard gasps from the formation. heard someone mutter "Jesus Christ" under their breath, heard the shuffle of feet as candidates instinctively wanted to help, but knew better than to move. "Get up," Callahan ordered. Maya pushed herself to her hands and knees. Blood dripped from a cut on her palm where the concrete had torn skin. She could feel the biosensor near her spine, already transmitting data, elevated heart rate, cortisol spike indicators of physical trauma. Not yet, she told herself. Not the right moment. "I said get up." She stood. Slowly. Keeping her head down, her shoulders hunched. Playing the victim. Playing the role she had perfected over 8 months of being invisible. "Look at me," Callahan demanded. Maya raised her eyes. And in that moment, something passed between them, a flicker of recognition, of challenge, of two predators identifying each other across a crowded room. Callahan saw it. His face changed. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice dropping low enough that only she could hear. "Kitchen staff senior chief. Nobody important." "No." He shook his head slowly. "No, you're not." The punch came without warning. Not a slap, not a push. A closed fist strike to her face, delivered with the full technical precision of a man who had taught hand-to-hand combat for 2 decades. His knuckle caught her eyebrow, splitting the skin to the bone. Blood erupted. Maya went down. 142 candidates stood frozen watching a 19-year Navy veteran assault a civilian kitchen worker. Watching blood pool on sacred ground. Watching something that violated every code they had been taught to uphold. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was total. Maya lay on the concrete, blood running down her face, and felt the biosensor complete its transmission. Somewhere in Langley, Virginia, screens were lighting up. Somewhere in Washington, D.C., NCIS was mobilizing. Somewhere in the ether, encrypted communications were being intercepted and decoded. 7 minutes. She had 7 minutes until the world fell on Derek Callahan's head. But she needed something first. Something the extraction teams couldn't get without her. His phone. The phone that contained encryption keys for communications with Chinese intelligence. The phone that held evidence of 3 years of treason, 47 compromised SEAL candidates, and 6 dead operators whose mission had been betrayed before they left American soil. She had to make him come closer. "Is that all you've got?" Maya said, her voice clear and steady, despite the blood filling her mouth. "My grandmother hits harder than that." The silence shattered. Callahan's face went purple, his hands clenched into fists. This wasn't supposed to happen. Civilians cried. Civilians begged. Civilians curled into balls and whimpered for mercy. They didn't laugh. "What did you say to me?" Maya pushed herself up to sitting, then to kneeling, then to standing. Blood ran down her face in a steady stream, soaking into her kitchen uniform, dripping onto the concrete. "I said my grandmother hits harder. She's 73 and has arthritis. You might want to work on your technique, Senior Chief." Someone in the formation made a sound, half gasp, half laugh, quickly suppressed. Callahan heard it. His eye twitched. "You think this is funny?" He stalked toward her, reaching for his phone. "You think assaulting a senior NCO is funny?" "I haven't assaulted anyone," Maya said calmly. "But I'm pretty sure the 142 witnesses behind you would confirm that you assaulted me." Callahan stopped. His hand hovered over his pocket. For a moment, just a moment, doubt flickered across his face. Then it hardened into rage. "You're done," he said. "Whatever job you think you have here, it's over. I'm going to document this file charges and make sure you never work on a military installation again." He pulled out his phone. Maya's world narrowed to that single object. 8 months of work. 8 months of watching men suffer. 8 months of serving breakfast to candidates whose psychological profiles Callahan sold to Chinese intelligence. 8 months of smiling at a monster. All of it came down to the next 30 seconds. "Senior Chief," she said quietly, "before you make that call, there's something you should know." "I don't care what you—" "The encrypted messaging app you use to communicate with your handler in Beijing. We cracked it 6 months ago. The offshore account in the Cayman Islands where you deposit the payments frozen as of 20 minutes ago. The 4 instructors who work with you, they're being arrested right now." Callahan's face went white. What are you— "My name isn't Maya Rodriguez." She straightened her spine and something in her posture changed. The submissive kitchen worker disappeared. In her place stood something else entirely. "It's Maya Reyes, and you're under arrest for espionage, treason, and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with the deaths of 6 United States Navy SEALs." The phone dropped from Callahan's nerveless fingers. Maya caught it before it hit the ground. "You're lying!" Callahan's voice came out strangled, desperate. "You're a kitchen worker. You're nobody." "I'm nobody," Maya agreed. "That's exactly what I needed to be." Behind Callahan, the formation had broken. Candidates were backing away, creating distance from a man they had feared for months. Some looked confused. Others looked relieved. A few looked like they wanted to applaud. "This is insane!" Callahan started to reach for Maya to grab the phone back. "Give me that. You don't have the authority." A new voice cut through the chaos. "She doesn't need the authority. I do." Lieutenant Commander James Nakamura Wolf, as the candidates called him, stepped forward from the edge of the grinder. He had been watching from the shadows, as he had been watching for 6 months. "Derek Callahan, I'm placing you under arrest on behalf of Naval Criminal Investigative Service." "Wolf." Callahan's face twisted with betrayal. You're part of this. I've been building this case for 2 years." Wolf's voice held no emotion. "Ever since my brother died in a mission that was compromised before it started. Thomas Nakamura, Team 3. You sold his location to Chinese intelligence for $50,000. The blood drained completely from Callahan's face. "Tommy was your brother, yes." Wolf moved closer, his hand resting on his sidearm. "And I've spent every day since his death waiting for this moment. It wasn't supposed to, they said it was just information, training protocols. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. Tell that to his widow. Tell that to his 3 children who will grow up without a father." Callahan's knees buckled. He dropped to the concrete, the same concrete where he had thrown Maya moments before. The same concrete where generations of warriors had been forged. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear to God, I didn't know they would—" "You knew." Maya's voice cut through his excuses like a scalpel. "The payments increased after each death. You knew exactly what your information was being used for." She held up his phone, the screen displaying encrypted messages that would take months to fully decode, but already revealed enough to guarantee multiple life sentences. 37 SEAL candidates whose psychological profiles you sold. 12 active duty operators compromised. 6 confirmed deaths. And that's just what we've found so far. Callahan began to cry. Not the dignified tears of a man accepting his fate. Ugly, heaving sobs that shook his entire body. 19 years of service. 2 silver stars. A reputation as a legend. All of it dissolving on the concrete of the grinder he had ruled like a kingdom. The extraction helicopter arrived in 11 minutes, 4 minutes later than projected, but Maya barely noticed. She was too busy watching the unraveling of a man who had terrorized hundreds of young warriors. Military police swarmed the grinder. Callahan was cuffed. read his rights, loaded into a vehicle that would take him to a detention facility where he would spend the next several months awaiting trial. 142 SEAL candidates stood in confused clusters, watching their world reorganize itself around a new reality. Maya sat on a concrete barrier, an EMT cleaning the wound above her eyebrow, while Wolf stood nearby making phone calls to coordinate the broader operation. 4 arrests in San Diego, he reported, covering his phone briefly. 2 in Virginia. 1 in Maryland. The network is collapsing. Maya nodded, wincing, as the EMT applied butterfly bandages to her split skin. The handler. Chinese intelligence is scrambling. They're pulling their assets, trying to protect whatever they can. But we've got enough to burn the whole operation. Good. Wolf ended his call and studied her for a long moment. You took a real punch. That wasn't part of the plan. Plans change. Maya touched the bandage gently. He was suspicious. I needed him angry enough to make a mistake. He could have killed you. He didn't. But he could have. Maya met Wolf's eyes. There was something in his gaze, respect, certainly, but also concern. The concern of someone who had seen too many young operatives burn themselves out in service of the mission. I knew the risks when I signed up, she said quietly. 6 SEALs died because of him. 47 candidates had their psychological vulnerabilities sold to a foreign government. 3 young men committed suicide because Callahan broke them and then profited from their destruction. This, she gestured at her face, is nothing compared to what they suffered. Wolf was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Deputy Director Chen is on her way. She wants to debrief you personally. I figured. And there's something else. Wolf hesitated. One of the candidates, Daniel Martinez, he was on Callahan's list. His profile was scheduled to be transmitted to Beijing next week. Maya closed her eyes. Daniel Martinez, 20 years old, from Phoenix. She had served him breakfast every morning for 8 months, had watched him struggle through Hell Week, had silently rooted for him to survive. Is he okay? He's confused. They all are. But he asked about you. Wanted to know if the kitchen girl was really some kind of spisa. Despite everything, Maya almost smiled. What did you tell him? I told him the kitchen girl was the bravest person I've ever met. Maya opened her eyes. Wolf wasn't looking at her. He was watching the helicopter that was bringing Deputy Director Chen from Los Angeles. That might be an exaggeration, Maya said. No. Wolf's voice was certain. It's not. Victoria Chen arrived like a force of nature, small in stature, but immense in presence. Her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, her eyes taking in every detail of the chaos on the grinder. Status report, she demanded before her feet had fully touched the ground. Network neutralized, Wolf replied. 7 arrests confirmed, more pending. Callahan is in custody. Evidence secured. Chen's eyes found Maya, scanned the blood-stained uniform, the bandaged face, the steady hands. You deviated from the plan. Yes, ma'am. The plan was to acquire the phone without direct confrontation, to maintain your cover until extraction. Callahan was suspicious. He had been watching me for 3 weeks. If I hadn't acted today, he would have investigated, found inconsistencies, disappeared before we could move. Chen was silent for a long moment. Maya could feel the weight of that silence, the judgment of a woman who had spent 40 years in intelligence, who had seen 100 operations succeed and 100 more fail. The phone, Chen finally said. The encryption keys are intact. Yes, ma'am, The biosensor data, transmitted and recorded. Every word Callahan said is documented. Chen nodded slowly. Something that might have been approval flickered across her face. "When you came to me 8 months ago," she said quietly, "you were a 19-year-old analyst with no field experience and a personal vendetta. I told you this mission would break you." Maya remembered that conversation, remembered the cold certainty in Chen's voice, the doubt in her eyes. "You were wrong," Maya said. "No." Chen shook her head. "I was testing you, and you just passed." She turned to Wolf. "Commander Nakamura, please ensure that Miss Reyes receives a full medical evaluation. Then bring her to the debrief facility. We have work to do." "Yes, ma'am." Chen walked away, already making calls, already coordinating the next phase of an operation that would take months to fully resolve. Maya watched her go and felt something shift inside her chest. 8 months of being invisible. 8 months of watching and waiting and pretending to be someone she wasn't. It was over. Or maybe it was just beginning. The medical evaluation took 2 hours. Concussion protocol negative. Facial laceration superficial, would heal without scarring. Psychological assessment stable, no immediate concerns. Maya answered every question submitted to every test and thought about Daniel Martinez. 20 years old, from Phoenix. Wanted to be a SEAL because his grandfather had served in Vietnam and his father had served in Desert Storm. 3 generations of warriors, and he wanted to continue the legacy. His psychological profile, his fears, his weaknesses, his breaking points had been scheduled for transmission to Chinese intelligence. If Maya hadn't acted, that information would have been used to compromise him, to turn him, to destroy everything he was trying to become. She had saved him. She had saved 47 others like him. But she had also spent 8 months watching Callahan abuse candidates without intervening, had watched young men break down in the mess hall, their hands shaking too badly to hold a fork, had heard stories of candidates who quit in the middle of the night, unable to endure another day of psychological torture. 3 of them had killed themselves. 3 young men who might be alive if Maya had acted sooner. If she had prioritized their immediate safety over the long-term mission. The math worked. 7 arrests, 47 saved, a spy network destroyed. But the math didn't account for the faces Maya saw when she closed her eyes. The debrief facility was a nondescript building on the outskirts of Coronado, the kind of place that looked like an insurance office from the outside and contained secrets that could reshape nations inside. Deputy Director Chen was waiting in a conference room, a thick folder open on the table in front of her. Wolf sat beside her, his expression unreadable. "Sit down, Miss Reyes." Maya sat. "The operation was a success," Chen began. "Derek Callahan will spend the rest of his life in prison. His network is dismantled. Chinese intelligence has lost a valuable asset." "But," Maya asked. Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. "What makes you think there's a but? There's always a but." For a moment, Chen almost smiled. Almost. "The but," she said, "is that we've intercepted communications suggesting this network was larger than we initially believed. Callahan wasn't just operating at Coronado. He had contacts at Fort Benning, at Camp Lejeune, at bases across the country." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "How many?" "We don't know yet. But the pattern suggests at least 3 other senior instructors involved in similar operations. Same methodology: identify promising candidates, document their psychological profiles, sell the information to foreign intelligence services. 3 more Callahans. At minimum. The room was silent for a moment. Maya stared at the table, processing the implications. You want me to go after them? I want you to consider your options. Chen leaned back in her chair. You've proven yourself, Miss Reyes. You have instincts that can't be taught, and a pain tolerance that most operators would envy. NCIS, CIA, FBI, any of them would be lucky to have you. But this work has a cost. You spent 8 months watching abuse happen and doing nothing. You smiled at a monster every morning. You served breakfast to men whose deaths you couldn't prevent. Chen's voice softened slightly. That kind of work leaves scars, the kind that don't show on medical evaluations. Maya thought about the 3 candidates who had killed themselves. Thought about the faces she saw when she closed her eyes. I can handle it, she said. I know you can. Chen closed the folder. The question is whether you should. Wolf walked Maya out of the facility as the sun set over Coronado, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. She's right, you know, he said. This work destroys people. I've seen it happen. Good operatives who gave everything to the mission and had nothing left for themselves. Is that what happened to you? Wolf was quiet for a long moment. My brother died 3 years ago. Since then, I've spent every waking moment hunting the people responsible. I've sacrificed relationships, friendships, any chance at a normal life. All for this. Was it worth it? Ask me tomorrow, after I've had a chance to feel something other than rage for the first time in 3 years. They reached the parking lot. A black SUV waited to take Maya to temporary housing, where she would spend the next several weeks being debriefed, evaluated, and prepared for whatever came next. For what it's worth, Wolf said, I meant what I told Martinez. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Maya opened the SUV door, then paused. Can I ask you something? Anything. If you had to do it again, the 3 years, the sacrifice, all of it, would you? Wolf considered the question. My brother had 3 kids. The oldest is 12 now. She looks just like him. Every time I see her, I remember why I started this, why I kept going when I wanted to quit. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Wolf met her eyes. Some things are worth any price. Protecting the people who can't protect themselves. Stopping predators who hide behind uniforms. Making sure that what happened to Tommy doesn't happen to anyone else. He paused. You already know this, Maya. You knew it 8 months ago when you walked into Chen's office and volunteered for a mission that should have been impossible. The question isn't whether the work is worth it. The question is whether you're willing to keep paying the price. Maya climbed into the SUV. Through the window, she watched Wolf walk back toward the facility, toward the endless work of dismantling networks and hunting predators. She thought about Daniel Martinez, who would graduate Bud S. in 3 weeks if he survived. She thought about the 3 candidates who hadn't survived. She thought about the phone in her pocket. Not Callahan's phone, which was now in evidence, but her own. A phone that contained a single photograph, 6 Navy SEALs smiling in front of a helicopter 12 hours before their mission was betrayed. Her father had taken that photograph. Her father, who had been the CIA analyst, who first identified the security breach. Who had been killed in a car accident in Vienna that wasn't an accident. Who had died because he got too close to the truth. Maya had been 12 years old. She had spent 8 years preparing for this moment, learning languages, developing skills. building the kind of invisible competence that allowed her to walk into the heart of naval special warfare and dismantle a spy network from the inside. The work wasn't over. It was never over. But for now, for this single moment, she allowed herself to feel something like peace. The SUV pulled away from the facility, carrying her toward an uncertain future. Behind her, the grinder at Coronado lay empty in the fading light sacred ground where generations of warriors had been forged, and where on this day one monster had finally been destroyed. The SUV drove through the California darkness for 20 minutes before Maya spoke. "Take me to the barracks." The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Ma'am, my orders are to transport you to the safe house. Deputy Director Chen." "I know what Chen wants, but there's something I need to do first." "Ma'am, I can't deviate from Daniel Martinez, Candidate Barracks. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." The driver hesitated. Maya could see the conflict on his face orders versus the woman who had just brought down a spy network with nothing but a fake ID and 8 months of patience. 5 minutes, he finally said. "Then we go to the safe house." "Thank you." The barracks were quiet when they arrived. Most candidates collapsed in exhausted sleep after the chaos of the day. Maya found Martinez sitting alone on the steps outside, staring at nothing. He looked up when he heard her approach. His eyes went wide. "You're the kitchen girl." "I was." Maya sat down beside him, keeping a careful distance. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know." Martinez laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This morning, I was worried about whether I'd survive Hell Week. Tonight, I find out my drill instructor was selling our information to China." He shook his head. "How am I supposed to process that?" "You're not. Not tonight. Tonight, you survive. Tomorrow, you process." Martinez studied her face. The bandage above her eyebrow, the dried blood she hadn't fully cleaned from her hairline. "He really hit you?" "Yes." "And you just took it, like it was nothing?" Maya was quiet for a moment. It wasn't nothing. It hurt like hell. But pain is temporary. What Callahan was doing that would have hurt people for years, decades, forever for some. "The commander said you're some kind of spy. Intelligence operative. There's a difference." "What's the difference? Spies steal secrets. I stop people who sell them." Martinez nodded slowly, processing. Then he asked the question Maya had been waiting for. "Why did you save me?" "What do you mean? They said my file was on the list. My psychological profile. They were going to send it to China next week." His voice cracked slightly. "Why did you care about someone like me?" Maya turned to face him fully. This boy, because that's what he was, really just a boy trying to become a warrior, had no idea how close he had come to having his entire future compromised. "My father was a SEAL," she said quietly. "Team 4. He died when I was 12. Martinez's expression shifted. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He knew the risks. He accepted them." Maya paused. "But before he died, he told me something. He said the teams aren't just about being the best. They're about protecting the people who can't protect themselves, the ones who don't even know they need protecting. Like me. Like you. Like every candidate who walks onto that grinder hoping to become something greater than themselves." Maya stood brushing dirt from her pants. "You're going to graduate Martinez. You're going to earn your trident, and someday you're going to protect people who don't even know your name." "How do you know?" "Because I've watched you for 8 months. I've seen you get knocked down and get back up. I've seen you help other candidates when you could barely help yourself. I've seen what you're made of." She held his gaze. "You're going to be a great SEAL, Daniel. Don't let what happened today make you doubt that." Martinez stood his posture, straightening, something shifting behind his eyes. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." Maya nodded once, then turned and walked back to the SUV. She didn't look back. Looking back was for people who doubted their choices. She had never doubted. Not once in 8 months. But as the SUV pulled away, she allowed herself to wonder what her father would think of what she had become. 8 months earlier, she had walked into CIA headquarters with nothing but a photograph and a burning need for answers. She had walked out with a mission that would either destroy her or forge her into something new. The memory of that day surfaced now, sharp and clear. Victoria Chen's office had smelled like old coffee and classified documents. Maya had sat in a hard plastic chair, her hands folded in her lap, her heart pounding so hard she was certain Chen could hear it. "You're Elena Reyes's daughter." It wasn't a question. Chen had a folder open in front of her, pages covered with information Maya couldn't read from her angle. "Yes, ma'am. Your mother was one of our best analysts. Her work on the Eastern European network saved hundreds of lives." "I know." "And your father, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reyes, Team 4, killed in action officially, killed by compromised intelligence, actually." Maya's throat tightened. "That's why I'm here." Chen closed the folder and studied Maya with eyes that seemed to see everything, every fear, every doubt, every burning ember of rage that Maya had carried for 8 years. "You want revenge." "I want justice." There's a difference. Revenge is about making someone pay. Justice is about making sure it never happens again. Chen was silent for a long moment. Then she did something Maya hadn't expected. She smiled. "Your mother said something similar once, right before she went undercover in Prague." The smile faded. "She didn't come back from Prague." "I know." Maya's voice was steady. "She was killed 6 months after my father. The official report said car accident. The real report, the one I hacked out of your database when I was 16, said assassination." Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. "You hacked CIA databases at 16. I needed to know the truth. And now that you know it, now I want to finish what they started." Chen leaned back in her chair, her fingers steepled beneath her chin. "You're 19 years old. You have no field training, no operational experience. You're asking me to send you into one of the most dangerous undercover assignments we've ever attempted. I'm asking you to let me help." "Help?" Chen laughed, but it wasn't cruel. It was the laugh of someone who had heard 100 young operatives say the same thing. "Do you know what undercover work actually involves? It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's months, sometimes years of being someone you're not, of watching bad things happen and doing nothing because the mission requires it, of smiling at monsters and serving them breakfast." "I understand." "No, you don't. Not yet." Chen stood and walked to the window. "But you will." She turned back to face Maya. "There's an operation. We've been planning it for 2 years, waiting for the right asset. Someone young enough to be invisible, smart enough to survive, motivated enough to endure." Her eyes locked onto Maya's. "Someone with nothing left to lose." "What's the operation?" "Naval Special Warfare Command, Coronado, California. We have evidence that a senior instructor is selling classified information to Chinese intelligence. Training protocols, candidate psychological profiles, names and faces of future SEAL operators." Maya felt her blood turn cold. Seals. Like my father. Yes. Like your father. Chen returned to her desk. 6 operators have died because of this leak. Missions compromised before they began. Good men killed by enemies who knew exactly where they would be. Who's the instructor? Senior Chief Derek Callahan, 19 years of service, 2 silver stars, a legend in the special operations community. Chen paused. And a traitor who's been selling his brothers to foreign intelligence for 3 years. Maya's hands clenched into fists. When do I start? You don't. Not until you understand what you're agreeing to. Chen pulled out another folder, thicker, heavier. This is the training program. 6 months of intensive preparation. Language, tradecraft, psychological conditioning, physical training that will make buds look like summer camp. I can handle it. Maybe. Maybe not. Chen slid the folder across the desk. But here's what you need to understand, Miss Reyes. Once you go under, you're alone. We can't extract you without blowing the operation. We can't contact you without risking exposure. You will spend months, possibly a year, surrounded by people who would kill you if they knew who you really were. I understand. And there's something else. Chen's voice softened slightly. Derek Callahan doesn't just sell information. He's a predator. He breaks candidates, uses psychological torture to identify weaknesses, then sells those weaknesses to the highest bidder. If he suspects you, he will try to break you too. Maya met Chen's gaze without flinching. He can try. Your confidence is noted. It may also get you killed. Chen stood again this time, extending her hand. Welcome to the Central Intelligence Agency, Miss Reyes. Your training begins tomorrow. Maya shook her hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Chen's grip tightened briefly. Thank me when you come back alive. The training had been everything Chen promised, and worse. Maya spent 6 months learning to be someone else, learning to suppress every instinct, every reaction, every piece of herself that might betray her true identity. She learned to walk like a kitchen worker, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes down, movements designed to avoid attention. She learned to speak like someone with a high school education and limited ambitions. She learned to smile at men who made her skin crawl. But the hardest part wasn't the physical training or the psychological conditioning. The hardest part was learning to watch. This is surveillance footage from Callahan's training cycles, her instructor had said, playing video after video on the screen. Watch what he does. Learn his patterns. Understand how he identifies targets. Maya watched. She watched Callahan single out candidates who showed vulnerability, watched him apply pressure subtle at first, then overwhelming until they broke. Watched young men who had dreamed of becoming warriors crumble into shells of themselves. He's not just training them, she said. He's farming them. Exactly. He identifies the ones most likely to wash out, accelerates their breakdown, then sells their psychological profiles to Chinese intelligence. Why would China want information on failed candidates? Because failed candidates don't disappear. They go into private security, law enforcement, government contracting. Some of them end up in positions with access to classified information. Her instructor paused. China is playing a long game. They're building a database of exploitable Americans. Maya felt sick. And Callahan is helping them. For $50,000 per profile. More for active duty operators. How many? We estimate 47 candidates over 3 years, plus 12 active duty SEALs whose mission details were compromised. Her instructor's voice hardened. 6 of those SEALs are dead. Maya closed her eyes. 6 faces. 6 families destroyed. 6 warriors who had trusted their brothers, never knowing that one of those brothers was selling them to the enemy. When do I deploy? 2 weeks. Your cover identity is complete. You'll be Maya Rodriguez, civilian kitchen support staff. Background, East Los Angeles high school dropout, enrolled through a Navy employment program for at-risk youth. What about the biosensor? Implanted yesterday while you were sedated. It's keyed to your biometrics. If you're ever in serious physical distress, it will automatically transmit an emergency signal. Maya touched the spot near her spine, where she could feel a tiny ridge beneath the skin. Her lifeline. Her only connection to the world outside her cover. And if something goes wrong, if Callahan suspects, then you run. You extract yourself by any means necessary, and you pray we can get to you before he does. And the mission? Her instructor was quiet for a long moment. The mission is more important than any individual operative. If you're compromised, we'll find another way. But the priority is always the intelligence. Maya understood. She had always understood. The mission came first. It always came first. Even if it cost her everything. The memory faded as the SUV arrived at the safe house, a nondescript apartment complex on the outskirts of San Diego. Maya climbed out, her body aching from the day's events, her mind still churning through 8 months of accumulated trauma. The apartment was clean, sparse, anonymous. Exactly what she expected. What she didn't expect was Victoria Chen sitting at the kitchen table, 2 cups of coffee steaming in front of her. "You visited Martinez," Chen said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Against orders?" "Yes." Chen gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit. We need to talk." Maya sat. The coffee was strong and black, exactly how her mother used to make it. She wondered if Chen knew that, or if it was coincidence. With Chen, nothing was coincidence. "You did well today," Chen began. "Better than anyone expected. The network is dismantled. Callahan is in custody. The intelligence community is calling this one of the most successful counter-espionage operations in a decade. But there are complications." Maya's stomach tightened. What kind of complications? Chen pulled out a tablet, swiped through several screens, then turned it to face Maya. A photograph filled the display. A man in his 50s, silver hair, cold eyes. "Do you know who this is?" Maya studied the face. Something about it seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. "No." "His name is William Cross, Sergeant Major, United States Army, 25 years of service, 3 Bronze Stars, currently assigned as senior instructor at Fort Bliss, Texas." Another Callahan. "We don't know yet, but the patterns are similar. Unusually high washout rates. Candidates who disappear into private contracting. Financial anomalies that suggest foreign payments." Maya set down her coffee cup. "You want me to go after him?" "I want you to consider the possibility." Chen took back the tablet. "You've proven yourself, Maya. You have skills that can't be taught. Instincts that most operatives never develop. I also have 8 months of trauma that I haven't begun to process." "I know," Chen's voice softened. "And I'm not asking you to make a decision tonight. I'm asking you to think about it. To consider what you want your future to look like." "My future?" Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. 24 hours ago, my future was serving breakfast to a traitor and hoping I didn't get caught. Now you're asking me to plan beyond next week. I'm asking you to recognize what you've become." Chen leaned forward. "You walked into my office 8 months ago as a grieving child with a death wish. You walked out of Coronado today as one of the most effective undercover operatives this agency has ever produced. I was lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it." Chen's eyes were intense. "You survived because you're extraordinary. Because you have something that can't be trained, a willingness to sacrifice everything for the mission. Is that supposed to be a compliment? It's supposed to be a warning. Chen stood gathering her things. That willingness is a gift. It's also a curse. It will make you invaluable to this agency. It will also destroy you if you're not careful. Maya watched Chen move toward the door. Wait. Chen paused, turning. The 6 SEALs who died. The ones whose missions were compromised. Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. Were any of them Team 4? Chen was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Thomas Nakamura. Wolf's brother. He was Team 4. Did he serve with my father? They deployed together twice. Your father was his mentor. Taught him everything he knew. Maya closed her eyes. Thomas Nakamura. Another piece of her father's legacy destroyed by the same network that had killed him. I'll do it, she heard herself say. Fort Bliss, Cross, whatever you need. Don't decide now. Take a week. Process what happened. Then if you still want to continue, come see me. I don't need a week. Take it anyway. Chen opened the door. That's an order. She left. Maya sat alone in the apartment, staring at the cold coffee, thinking about ghosts. Her father. Her mother. Thomas Nakamura. The 3 candidates who had killed themselves under Callahan's torture. She had spent 8 years preparing for revenge. 8 months executing a mission. And now, sitting in this anonymous apartment, she finally allowed herself to feel the weight of what she had done. She had watched people suffer, had served breakfast to men who would die because of information Callahan sold, had smiled at a monster every morning and done nothing because the mission required it. The math worked. 7 arrests, 47 candidates saved, a spy network destroyed. But math couldn't measure the cost. Maya stood and walked to the window, looking out at the San Diego skyline. Somewhere out there, Daniel Martinez was sleeping in his barracks, dreaming of becoming a SEAL. Somewhere Wolf was sitting with his brother's photograph, finally able to grieve. Somewhere Derek Callahan was in a cell, beginning to understand that his life was over. And somewhere in Texas, another predator was hunting in uniform. Maya touched the scar above her eyebrow, still fresh, still tender. A reminder of what she had survived, what she had prevented, what she had become. Chen was right. She needed to process, needed to heal, needed to remember what it felt like to be Maya Reyes, not Maya Rodriguez. But she also knew with a certainty that went bone deep that she wouldn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not while there were still monsters wearing uniforms. Not while there were still young warriors who needed protecting. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you. DM. Daniel Martinez. Somehow he had found a way to contact her. Maya smiled a real smile, the first one in 8 months, that wasn't part of her cover. You're welcome, she whispered to the empty room. Then she put down the phone, lay down on the bed, and let herself sleep. Tomorrow she would start processing. Tomorrow she would begin the long work of healing. But tonight she would rest. She had earned that much. The dreams came anyway, dark and formless, filled with Callahan's face, and the sound of fists hitting flesh, and the screams of young men breaking under pressure they were never meant to withstand. Maya woke at 300, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding, her hands reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. The mission was over. The nightmares were just beginning. The nightmares didn't stop after that first night. They came every time Maya closed her eyes, relentless and vivid. Callahan's face, the sound of his fist connecting with her skull, the screams of candidates breaking in the darkness. 3 days after the operation, she stopped trying to sleep. Wolf found her at 0400 on the 4th morning sitting on the beach behind the safe house, watching waves she couldn't really see in the pre-dawn darkness. "You look like hell," he said, dropping down beside her. "Thank you. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear." "When did you last sleep? Define sleep." Wolf didn't push. He sat in silence, letting the sound of the ocean fill the space between them. Maya appreciated that about him. He understood that some wounds needed air, not bandages. "I keep seeing their faces," she finally said. "The 3 who killed themselves. Collins, Rivera, Park. I served them breakfast every morning for months, watched them deteriorate, did nothing." "You couldn't do anything, not without blowing the operation." "I know. That's what makes it worse." Maya pulled her knees to her chest. "The math works. I saved 47. I stopped a network that would have compromised hundreds more. But those 3 boys are still dead." "They were already dead." Wolf's voice was gentle but firm. "Callahan killed them. You didn't. I watched. You documented. You gathered evidence. You built the case that will put him away forever." Wolf turned to face her. "Maya, I spent 3 years hunting the man who killed my brother. 3 years of rage and obsession and wondering if I was losing myself. You know what I learned? What? Guilt is a luxury. The dead don't need our guilt. They need us to keep fighting, to make sure their deaths meant something." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Is that really what you believe? Or is that what you tell yourself so you can sleep at night?" "Both." Wolf almost smiled. "The 2 aren't mutually exclusive." Her phone buzzed. A message from Chen. "My office, 0800. Important development." Maya showed it to Wolf. His expression shifted, the momentary lightness disappearing. "That doesn't sound good." "With Chen, it never does." 3 hours later, Maya sat across from Deputy Director Chen in a secure conference room at the San Diego field office. Wolf was there too, along with 2 people Maya didn't recognize, a woman in her 40s with FBI credentials and a man whose suit screamed Department of Justice. "We have a problem," Chen began. "Callahan is talking." "Isn't that what we wanted?" Maya asked. "We wanted him to talk about the network. Instead, he's talking about you." Maya's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" The FBI agent leaned forward. "Callahan is claiming entrapment. He says you seduced him, manipulated him, set him up to take the fall for a network he wasn't really part of." "That's absurd. We know." Chen held up a hand. "We have 8 months of surveillance footage, biosensor data, and documented evidence that proves otherwise. His claims won't hold up in court." "Then what's the problem?" The DOJ representative spoke for the first time. "The problem is that Callahan isn't just talking to his lawyers. He's talking to the media. Someone leaked his accusations to 3 major news outlets this morning." Maya felt the floor shift beneath her. "My cover is still intact. For now, the leaks only mention a female operative without identifying you specifically." Chen's expression was grim. "But if Callahan keeps talking, if his lawyers start digging, it's only a matter of time before your identity becomes public." "What does that mean for the case?" "The case is solid. 7 people are in custody. The evidence is overwhelming. Even if Callahan's accusations gain traction, they won't change the outcome of the prosecution." "But," Chen exchanged glances with the FBI agent before continuing, "but it means you're compromised. Your face, your cover identity, your methods, all of it could become public knowledge within weeks. You won't be able to work undercover again." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. 8 years of preparation. 6 months of training. 8 months of sacrifice. All of it potentially destroyed because a traitor decided to throw accusations rather than accept responsibility. "There has to be something we can do," Wolf said. "Gag order, media blackout, something." "We're working on it." The DOJ representative didn't sound confident. "But Callahan's lawyers are good. They're framing this as a whistleblower situation, claiming their client was set up by overzealous intelligence agencies. He sold secrets to China." Maya's voice came out sharper than she intended. 6 SEALs are dead because of him. We know that, but the public doesn't. Not yet. And by the time the trial presents all the evidence, Callahan's narrative will have had months to spread. Chen's voice was heavy. "This is how disinformation works. The truth is complicated. Lies are simple. Simple spreads faster." Maya stood abruptly, needing to move, needing to do something with the rage building in her chest. "So what, I just hide in a safe house while Callahan turns himself into a victim?" "No." Chen's single word stopped Maya mid-pace. "You do exactly what you were trained to do. You adapt." "Adapt how?" "Fort Bliss." Chen pulled out the tablet again, displaying William Cross's photograph. "We accelerate the timeline. If your identity is going to be compromised anyway, we use the window we have left." "You want me to go undercover again now?" "I want you to consider the option." Chen set down the tablet. Cross is connected to the same network as Callahan. Different handler, different methodology, but the same Chinese intelligence operation. If we can take him down before your cover is blown, we cripple their entire recruitment infrastructure. Maya stared at Cross's face. Cold eyes, silver hair, the confident expression of a man who believed he was untouchable. "How long would I have? Best case 6 weeks before the leaks become specific enough to identify you. Worst case 2 weeks. That's not enough time to build a proper cover, to establish trust. I know." Chen's voice was gentle. "That's why I'm not ordering you to do this. I'm asking if you're willing to try." The room went silent. Wolf was watching Maya with an expression she couldn't read. The FBI agent and DOJ representative were carefully neutral. Maya thought about Daniel Martinez sleeping in his barracks, unaware of how close he had come to destruction. Thought about the 3 candidates who hadn't survived. Thought about her father, her mother, all the ghosts that had driven her to this moment. "If I do this," she said slowly, "and my cover gets blown mid-operation, then we extract you. Immediately. No questions asked. And the intelligence I've gathered up to that point, still valuable. Even a partial takedown is better than letting Cross continue operating." Maya closed her eyes. Every instinct screamed that this was too fast, too risky, too likely to end in failure. She had barely survived Coronado. The nightmares hadn't stopped. She hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in nearly a week. But somewhere in Texas, another predator was hunting. Another network was selling American secrets. Another generation of warriors was being exploited by someone they trusted. "When do I leave?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Relief, respect. Both. Tomorrow night. We have a cover identity ready. Kitchen staff again, it worked at Coronado, and Cross won't have any reason to suspect the same approach." "What about the biosensor?" "Already being modified. New frequency, new encryption. Even if Callahan's people compromised the old system, they won't be able to track the new one." Maya nodded slowly. "And Wolf. Commander Nakamura will be running the operation from a support position here in San Diego. He knows the network. He knows the players. He's your lifeline." Wolf spoke up. "I should go with her. Closer support. If something goes wrong? If something goes wrong, you being on site won't help. You'll just give them 2 targets instead of 1. Chen shook her head. You're more valuable here coordinating with NCIS and monitoring communications. Wolf didn't look happy, but he didn't argue. Maya understood. Sometimes the hardest part of the mission was staying behind. One more thing, Chen said. Cross isn't like Callahan. He's smarter, more patient. He doesn't lose his temper, doesn't make obvious mistakes. If you're going to take him down in 6 weeks or less, you'll need to find a different approach. What do you suggest? His daughter. Chen swiped to a new image on the tablet. A woman in her early 30s, dark hair, sharp features. Captain Sarah Cross, Army Intelligence, stationed at Fort Bliss. Maya's stomach tightened. You want me to use his daughter against him? I want you to understand the landscape. Sarah Cross has been questioning her father's activities for months. She's noticed inconsistencies, unusual contacts, money that doesn't make sense. Chen paused. She came to us 3 weeks ago, voluntarily. She's an informant. She's a patriot who suspects her father is a traitor and wants to know the truth. Maya studied the photograph. Sarah Cross looked tired, conflicted, like someone carrying a weight too heavy for one person. Does she know about me? No, and she won't unless you decide to make contact. Chen set down the tablet. That's your call, Maya. Use her or don't, but understand that she might be your fastest route to the evidence we need. The meeting ended shortly after. Maya walked out of the building into bright California sunshine that felt obscene given the darkness of what she was about to do. Wolf caught up with her in the parking lot. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Chen gave you a choice. You can walk away, disappear into witness protection, start a new life somewhere far from all this. Maya stopped walking and turned to face him. Is that what you would do? Wolf was silent. That's what I thought. Maya started walking again. I appreciate the concern, Wolf, really, but I stopped being able to walk away 8 years ago. When your parents died. When I decided that their deaths would mean something. Maya reached the SUV that would take her back to the safe house. Some prices are worth paying. You taught me that. I also taught you that the mission will destroy you if you let it. Then I won't let it. Maya opened the door. Keep me alive, Wolf. That's all I'm asking. I'll do my best. Your best got us through Coronado. I'm counting on it getting us through Fort Bliss. She climbed into the SUV and closed the door. Through the window, she watched Wolf standing in the parking lot, his expression troubled. He was right to be worried. This operation was rushed, under-resourced, and built on a foundation of desperation rather than careful planning. Everything about it violated the principles of effective undercover work. But sometimes the mission didn't wait for ideal conditions. Sometimes you had to work with what you had and pray it was enough. The drive back to the safe house took 20 minutes. Maya spent the time memorizing her new cover identity, Jessica Nunez. 21 years old, from El Paso. Single mother working to support a 3-year-old daughter. Joined the civilian employment program because she needed stable income and couldn't afford childcare for a traditional job. The backstory was solid. Sympathetic, but not suspicious. The kind of life that made people look away rather than ask questions. But it also meant carrying another person's pain, inhabiting another person's struggles. Becoming someone with wounds Maya would have to perform every single day. She wondered if there was a limit to how many identities one person could carry before losing themselves entirely. The safe house was quiet when she arrived. Maya went straight to the bedroom, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number she had memorized, but never used. It rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered. "Who is this?" "My name is Maya Reyes. I believe you've been expecting my call." Silence. "Then, how did you get this number? Deputy Director Chen gave it to me. She said you might be able to help." More silence. Maya could practically hear Sarah Cross processing, weighing risks, calculating possibilities. "Where are you?" "San Diego. But I'll be at Fort Bliss tomorrow night." "Why are you calling me now?" "Because I need to know if you're serious. If you're really willing to help bring down your father, or if you're going to fold the moment things get difficult." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "You don't know anything about me. I know you went to Chen voluntarily. I know you've been documenting your father's activities for months. I know you're terrified of what you might find, but more terrified of what happens if you don't look." "Chen told you all that." "Chen told me enough. The rest I figured out myself." Another pause. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was harder. "What do you want from me? Access, information. A way inside your father's operation that doesn't require months of careful positioning. And what do I get? The truth, whatever it is. Even if it's worse than you're imagining. And if it destroys him, if it destroys our whole family." Maya thought about her own family, about the parents she had lost, about the years of grief and rage that had shaped her into whatever she was now. "Then at least you'll know," she said quietly. "Uncertainty is worse than the worst truth. Trust me on that." Sarah was silent for so long that Maya thought she might have hung up. Then, "There's a coffee shop off base, Rosa's. My father has breakfast there every Saturday morning, 7 a.m. sharp." "Is that an invitation?" "It's information. What you do with it is your choice." Sarah paused. "But Maya, if you're playing me, if this is some kind of setup, I will destroy you. Family loyalty only goes so far." "Understood." The line went dead. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone in her hands. She had just made contact with an informant without authorization. Had revealed her real name to someone who could compromise the entire operation with a single phone call. Chen would be furious. But Chen had also told her to find a different approach. To adapt. To use whatever tools were available. Sarah Cross was a tool. A weapon. A doorway into a fortress that would otherwise take months to penetrate. Maya just had to make sure that door didn't slam shut on her when she walked through it. Her phone buzzed, a text from Wolf. "Chen says you're leaving tomorrow. Dinner tonight, debriefing and logistics." Maya typed back, 7 p.m. Your choice of restaurant. Italian. I know a place. See you then. She set down the phone and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, she would become Jessica Nunez. Tomorrow she would walk into another predator's territory and begin the slow, dangerous work of earning trust she intended to betray. But tonight, she would have dinner with a friend. Would talk about something other than operations and intelligence and the weight of necessary evils. Tonight, she would remember what it felt like to be human. The restaurant was small, family-owned, tucked away in a neighborhood that tourists never found. Wolf was waiting when Maya arrived, a bottle of wine already open on the table. "You look better," he said as she sat down. "Liar." "Okay, you look slightly less terrible." He poured her a glass. "How are you really terrified, exhausted, questioning every decision I've ever made?" Maya took a long sip of wine. "So normal." Wolf laughed. It was the first time she had heard him laugh since before the operation, and the sound was strange, unfamiliar. You know, 3 years ago I didn't laugh. At all. My therapist actually noted it in my file. Patient displays absence of humor response consistent with prolonged grief. Sounds clinical. It was accurate. Wolf swirled his wine, watching the red liquid catch the light. After Tommy died, I forgot how to be anything other than angry. Forgot how to have conversations that weren't about revenge. Forgot how to be a person instead of a weapon. What changed? The operation, Coronado, watching you work. He met her eyes. You reminded me why we do this. Not for revenge. Not for the dead. For the living. For the ones we can still save. Maya didn't know what to say. She had spent so long thinking of herself as a weapon that she had forgotten weapons could inspire. I'm scared, she admitted. Fort Bliss, Cross, all of it. I'm scared I'm going to fail. Scared I'm going to get people killed. Scared I'm going to lose myself completely this time. Fear is good. Fear keeps you sharp. Fear is also exhausting. That too. Wolf reached across the table and squeezed her hand briefly. Listen to me. You're the most capable operative I've ever worked with. You have instincts that can't be taught, and a determination that borders on pathological. You're going to walk into Fort Bliss tomorrow night, and you're going to take down William Cross, and then you're going to come home. You sound very confident. I am confident. In you. Wolf released her hand. Now eat. You're going to need your strength. They ate. They talked. For a few hours, Maya allowed herself to forget about the mission waiting for her, about the predator in Texas, about the ticking clock of her compromised identity. She talked about her parents, about the childhood she barely remembered before everything went wrong, about the dreams she used to have of being a teacher, a writer, someone whose life didn't revolve around lies and violence. Wolf talked about Tommy, about growing up as brothers competing at everything, loving each other even when they couldn't stand each other, about the phone call that had shattered his world. They didn't talk about the future. Some things were too uncertain to discuss. When the meal ended, Wolf drove Maya back to the safe house. They sat in the car for a moment, neither wanting to break the fragile peace they had built. Thank you, Maya finally said, for tonight, for everything. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when Fort Bliss is done. Deal. She opened the door, started to get out, then paused. Wolf, if something happens to me, if I don't come back, will you make sure Daniel Martinez knows about his file? About what almost happened. I want him to understand how close it was. Wolf's expression was unreadable in the darkness. You're coming back. But if I don't, then I'll tell him. I promise. Maya nodded and climbed out of the car. She watched Wolf drive away, his taillights disappearing into the California night. Tomorrow, she would become someone else again. Would walk into danger wearing a stranger's face. Would smile at a monster and document his crimes and wait for the moment when the trap could finally spring shut. But tonight, she had been Maya Reyes. Daughter. Orphan. Friend. Tonight she had remembered what she was fighting for. She went inside, packed her bag, and set her alarm for 500. Sleep came easier than she expected. The nightmares stayed away. For one night at least, the ghosts let her rest. Fort Bliss hit Maya like a wall of heat and dust the moment she stepped off the bus. Texas in summer was brutal, unforgiving, the kind of climate that broke people before the training ever started. Perfect hunting ground for a predator like William Cross. Maya Jessica, now she reminded herself, always Jessica reported to the Civilian Employment Office at 0700 and spent 2 hours filling out paperwork, taking photographs, receiving her badge and uniform. By noon, she was carrying trays in the enlisted dining facility, invisible in her kitchen scrubs, watching soldiers eat and laugh and complain about the heat. By the end of her first day, she had identified 3 of Cross's known associates. By the end of her first week, she had mapped his entire routine. Saturday morning. Rosa's coffee shop. 0700 sharp. Just like Sarah had promised. Maya arrived at 06:45, ordered black coffee, and took a seat in the corner where she could see both entrances. She was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, a plain t-shirt, nothing that would connect her to the base. Cross walked in at exactly 0700. Silver hair. Cold eyes. The confident stride of a man who had never been challenged. He ordered without looking at the menu, took his usual table by the window, and opened a newspaper. Old school, the kind of man who distrusted anything digital. Maya watched him from behind her coffee cup. 3 years of selling secrets, dozens of compromised soldiers, unknown numbers of deaths attributable to his intelligence. And he sat there reading the sports section like he hadn't destroyed countless lives. He does that every Saturday. Maya didn't flinch at Sarah's voice. She had heard her approach registered the familiar footsteps from the research files. Creature of habit, Maya said without turning around. Creature of arrogance. Sarah slid into the seat across from her. He thinks he's untouchable. 25 years of service, 3 Bronze Stars friends in every corner of the Pentagon. Who would ever suspect him? You suspected. I'm his daughter. I know what he's capable of. Sarah's voice was bitter. I've known since I was 12 years old, and watched him destroy my mother's life. Maya finally looked at her. Sarah Cross in person was different from her photographs. Harder. More worn. The face of someone carrying secrets too heavy for one person. What happened to your mother? She found out. About his first affair. Confronted him. Sarah's jaw tightened. He didn't hit her. That wasn't his style. Instead, he systematically dismantled her reputation, spread rumors, got her transferred to a dead-end posting, made sure everyone believed she was unstable. And you, I was useful. A daughter in Army intelligence looked good on his record, so he kept me close, groomed me to follow in his footsteps. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. The irony is, he's the one who taught me how to spot patterns, how to identify inconsistencies, how to recognize when someone is hiding something. And now you're using those skills against him. Now I'm using those skills for what they were meant to do, protecting the country. Sarah leaned forward. I'm not doing this for revenge, Maya. I need you to understand that. I'm doing this because he's a traitor and someone has to stop him. Maya studied her for a long moment, looking for deception, looking for the tells that would indicate Sarah was playing her own game. She found nothing but exhausted determination. What do you have? Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. Financial records, offshore accounts he doesn't know I know about, transaction dates that correspond with compromised operations. Maya took the envelope, resisting the urge to open it immediately. This is enough to start an investigation, maybe enough for a warrant. It's not enough to prove treason, not enough to connect him to specific deaths. Sarah's voice dropped. But I know where the real evidence is. Where? His study, at home. There's a safe behind his bookshelf. Old-fashioned combination lock. He doesn't trust digital security. Whatever he's hiding, it's in there. You've never tried to access it? I've never had the combination, and I couldn't risk him finding out I was looking. Sarah's eyes met Maya's. But you could, if you got close enough. Maya felt the trap closing around her. This was too easy, too convenient. Sarah showing up with financial records and a roadmap to the evidence they needed. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. Sarah didn't hesitate. Trust is for people who haven't been betrayed. I'm offering information. What you do with it is your choice. And what do you want in return? I want to know the truth, all of it, even if it destroys everything I thought I knew about my family. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. I want to know if my father is responsible for the deaths of American soldiers. And if he is, I want to watch him face justice. Across the room, William Cross folded his newspaper and stood. For a moment, his eyes swept the coffee shop, passing over Maya and Sarah without pausing. Then he walked out, leaving his coffee cup on the table for someone else to clean up. He didn't recognize you, Maya said. He never recognizes me when I'm not useful to him. Sarah stood gathering her bag. The combination to his safe. I'll find it. Give me a week. We might not have a week. Then give me whatever time you have. Sarah paused, looking down at Maya. Be careful with him. He's not like Callahan. He doesn't lose control. He calculates, plans, destroys people so thoroughly they don't even realize they've been destroyed until it's too late. I've dealt with predators before. Not like him. My father is the most dangerous man I've ever known. Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. And I've spent my entire life learning to survive him. She left. Maya sat alone with her cold coffee, watching through the window as Sarah's car pulled away. Too easy. Too convenient. Every instinct Maya had developed over 8 months of undercover work screamed that something was wrong. But she didn't have time for caution. The clock was ticking. Somewhere in San Diego, Callahan's lawyers were digging. Somewhere in the media machine, her identity was being pieced together. She had weeks, maybe less, before her cover was blown completely. Sarah Cross was either an ally or a trap. Maya was about to find out which. The second week at Fort Bliss Cross noticed her. Maya was serving lunch in the officers' dining facility when he walked in with 2 other senior NCOs. She kept her head down, her movements efficient, her expression blank. But she felt his eyes on her, felt the weight of his attention like a physical pressure. You're new. His voice was calm, measured, nothing like Callahan's aggressive bark. Yes, sir. Started last week. Name, Jessica Nunez, sir. Cross studied her for a moment. Maya kept her gaze fixed on the floor, channeling every ounce of submissive energy she could muster. Where are you from, Jessica? El Paso, sir. Born and raised. Family. A daughter, sir, 3 years old. That's why I took this job. Stable hours. Good benefits. Cross nodded slowly. Something flickered in his eyes, not suspicion exactly, but assessment. The predator evaluating potential prey. Work hard, Jessica. This base has high standards. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. He moved on. Maya exhaled slowly, her heart pounding against her ribs. He had noticed her. That was good. She needed proximity to gather intelligence. He had noticed her. That was terrifying, because William Cross didn't notice people casually. That night, Maya reported the encounter to Wolf via encrypted phone. He made contact, she said. Brief, assessment style. He's cataloging me. That matches his pattern. He evaluates everyone, files them away for future use. Wolf's voice was tense. Be careful. If he's showing interest this early, it might mean he suspects something. Or it might mean I fit his target profile. Young, vulnerable, single mother with no support system. Either way, you're on his radar now. Watch your back. Always. Maya ended the call and stared at the ceiling of her tiny off-base apartment. The walls were thin. She could hear her neighbor's television through the plaster, some reality show with dramatic music and staged conflicts. Real conflict was quieter. Real danger didn't announce itself with dramatic soundtracks. Real danger walked up to you in a dining facility and asked your name with a smile that never reached its eyes. The third week brought Sarah's call. "I have it. The combination." Maya gripped the phone tighter. "How?" "He has a system. Dates that matter to him. His promotion to Sergeant Major. His first Bronze Star. The day my mother left." Sarah's voice was flat. "Once I figured out the pattern, the rest was easy. When can you get me inside?" "Friday night. He has a standing poker game with his associates. Leaves the house at 7, doesn't come back until after midnight." Sarah paused. "I'll be there too. Covering for you if anything goes wrong. That's a risk for you. Everything about this is a risk. But I need to know Maya. I need to see what's in that safe for myself." Friday. 3 days away. Maya calculated the timing. 3 days to maintain her cover. 3 days to avoid doing anything that might raise Cross's suspicions. 3 days to prepare for an infiltration that would either deliver the evidence they needed or destroy everything. "Friday," she agreed. "Send me the address." The line went dead. Maya spent the next 3 days being perfectly invisible. She served meals, she cleaned tables, she smiled at soldiers and stayed quiet, and played the role of Jessica Nunez so completely that even she started to forget where the cover ended and the real person began. But at night alone in her apartment, Maya Reyes surfaced. She reviewed the intelligence Wolf had sent. Cross's known associates, his communication patterns, the suspected foreign handler whose identity remained frustratingly unclear. She studied the layout of his house from satellite imagery, memorized entry points, exit routes, potential complications. She prepared for everything that could go wrong, and she tried not to think about what would happen if this was all a trap. Friday arrived with a dust storm that turned the sky brown and forced everyone indoors. Maya took it as an omen, good or bad, she couldn't decide. Sarah picked her up 3 blocks from her apartment at 1830, driving a nondescript sedan that screamed rental car. "You're sure he's gone?" Maya asked as she climbed in. "I watched him leave 20 minutes ago. The poker game is at Sergeant Major Patterson's house across base. He won't be back for hours." They drove in silence through residential streets, past identical houses where military families lived, identical lives unaware of the predator among them. Cross's house was larger than the others. Senior NCO privilege. Set back from the street with a privacy fence and mature landscaping. "Security system?" Maya asked. "Disabled. I told him it was malfunctioning and scheduled a repair for Monday." Sarah's smile was grim. "He trusts me. That's his biggest mistake." They parked 2 houses down and approached on foot. Sarah had a key. Of course she did. She was the dutiful daughter who checked on the house when her father was away. The door opened silently. The house was dark, quiet, smelling of cigars and old books, and something else Maya couldn't identify. "Study is upstairs," Sarah whispered. "Second door on the left." They moved through the darkness, Maya's training taking over. Silent footsteps, controlled breathing. Every sense alert for danger. The study was exactly as Sarah had described. Oak bookshelves, heavy desk, a single window overlooking the backyard. "Behind the Hemingway collection," Sarah said, pointing. Maya found the hidden panel. Behind it, a safe. Old-fashioned, just like Sarah had said. Combination lock, no digital interface. "The numbers," Sarah recited them. Her voice trembled slightly. Maya entered the combination. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside folders. Dozens of them. Neatly labeled, meticulously organized. Maya pulled out the first one and felt her blood turn to ice. Photographs. American soldiers. Names, units, deployment schedules. Oh God, Sarah breathed behind her. Maya pulled out another folder. Financial records. Payments from offshore accounts corresponding to specific dates. Another folder. Communication transcripts. Coded messages with a handler identified only as Dragon. Another. And another. And another. William Cross hadn't just been selling information. He had been running an entire network. Recruiters at bases across the country funneling intelligence to Chinese handlers in exchange for payments that totaled in the millions. This is everything, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. This is the whole operation. Take it. Sarah's face was pale stricken. Take all of it. I don't want it in this house anymore. Maya was reaching for her bag when the lights came on. That won't be necessary. William Cross stood in the doorway. Behind him, two men Maya recognized from the dining facility, his associates, his network. Hello, Sarah. Cross's voice was calm, almost gentle. I wondered when you would finally make your move. Sarah stumbled backward. How did you know? Cross smiled. I've known for months. The questions you asked, the files you accessed, the way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't watching. He shook his head slowly. You were never subtle enough, sweetheart. I taught you everything you know. I didn't teach you everything I know. Maya's hand moved toward her concealed weapon. Don't. Cross didn't raise his voice. My men are faster than you, and there's no extraction team waiting outside. Yes, I know about that too. Ms. Reyes. The use of her real name hit Maya like a physical blow. Surprised. Cross walked into the room, circling them like a shark. Derek Callahan was always careless, letting his temper control him, making enemies unnecessarily. I'm not careless, Ms. Reyes. I'm thorough. Then you know this is over. Maya forced her voice to remain steady. You know they're coming for you. No one is coming. Cross picked up one of the folders Maya had pulled from the safe. Your handler in San Diego thinks you're gathering intelligence. Your extraction protocols require evidence of immediate danger. By the time anyone realizes something is wrong, you'll have disappeared. Just like all the others who got too close. Others? You think you're the first operative they've sent against me? Cross laughed softly. There have been 3 before you. 2 met unfortunate accidents. One decided to take early retirement after her family received some concerning photographs. He set down the folder. I've been doing this for 15 years, Ms. Reyes. I know how to handle problems. Maya's mind raced. No extraction, no backup. 2 armed men blocking the door and a predator who had been playing her since the moment she arrived. She had walked into exactly the trap she feared. What do you want? Sarah's voice cracked. If you're going to kill us, just do it. Don't kill you. Cross looked at his daughter with something that might have been disappointment. Sarah, you're my daughter. I would never kill you. I'm going to do something far worse. He nodded to his men. They moved forward, grabbing Sarah before she could react. Let her go. Maya lunged, but Cross was faster. His fist connected with her solar plexus, driving the air from her lungs, dropping her to her knees. You're going to prison, Sarah, Cross said calmly, watching his men restrain his struggling daughter. For espionage, for treason, for conspiring with a foreign intelligence operative to steal classified materials. That's insane, Sarah gasped. I'm trying to stop you. That's not what the evidence will show. Cross crouched beside Maya, who was still fighting to breathe. That's the beautiful thing about being thorough. I've been building a case against my own daughter for 6 months. Financial transfers to offshore accounts. Communications with suspicious foreign contacts. All fabricated, of course. but convincing enough to destroy her. Why? Maya managed to gasp. Because she chose poorly. Cross stood straightening his jacket. I gave her everything. Career, connections, a future, and she threw it away for principles. He spat the word like a curse. Principles don't protect you in this world, Ms. Reyes. Power does. And I have more power than you can imagine. You won't get away with this. I've been getting away with it for 15 years. One more body won't make a difference. Cross nodded to his men. Take Sarah to the car. We have a long night ahead. They dragged Sarah toward the door. She screamed fought, but they were too strong, too practiced. Maya pushed herself up her hand, finally closing around her concealed weapon. She never got the chance to draw it. Something hit the back of her head. The world exploded into white light, then darkness. The last thing she heard before consciousness faded was Cross's voice, cold and certain. Clean this up. Make it look like an accident. Then, nothing. Maya woke to pain. Her head throbbed. Her wrists were bound. The surface beneath her was cold metallic, a trunk. She was in the trunk of a car. The vehicle was moving, bouncing over rough terrain. She had no idea how long she had been unconscious or how far they had traveled. Think. She had to think. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back. Standard restraint. Painful but not impossible to escape with enough time and determination. Her biosensor was still transmitting. She could feel the faint warmth near her spine that indicated active status. But Cross knew about the sensor. He might have blocked the signal or disabled it entirely. No weapon, no phone, no backup. Just herself and whatever time remained before Cross decided to make her another accident. Maya twisted her wrists, feeling the plastic bite into her skin. Pain didn't matter. Survival mattered. She thought about Wolf waiting in San Diego for a call that might never come. Thought about Chen trusting that her most valuable asset could handle one more impossible mission. Thought about Daniel Martinez, who would never know how close he had come to destruction. She thought about her parents, about the promise she had made to herself at 12 years old, standing at their graves. I will finish what you started. The zip ties began to give. Slowly, painfully, but they gave. Maya worked faster, ignoring the blood now slicking her wrists. The car was slowing down. They were arriving at whatever destination Cross had chosen. 5 seconds. That's all she needed. 5 seconds of surprise, and she might have a chance. The zip ties snapped. Maya flexed her fingers, restoring circulation, preparing for whatever came next. The car stopped. Footsteps outside. Voices. The trunk opened. Maya exploded upward, her fist connecting with the face of the man who had opened it. He staggered backward, blood erupting from his nose. She was out of the trunk before he hit the ground, already moving toward the second man who was reaching for his weapon. Too slow. She was on him before he could draw her training taking over. Elbow to the throat, knee to the groin, head against the car door until he stopped moving. 2 down. Cross was nowhere in sight. Maya grabbed the fallen man's weapon and scanned her surroundings. Desert, darkness, a single structure in the distance, some kind of abandoned building, and Sarah's voice screaming from inside. Maya ran. The building was an old military storage facility abandoned years ago when the base expanded in another direction. Maya moved through the darkness with the stolen weapon, raised her bleeding wrists, leaving trails on the dusty floor. Sarah's screams had stopped. That was either very good or very bad. Maya pushed through a rusted door and found them. Cross stood over his daughter, who was crumpled on the ground, her face bruised, her lip split. He held a phone in his hand, recording. "Perfect," he said without turning around. "I was hoping you'd survive long enough to join us. Step away from her. or what you'll shoot me." Cross finally turned. His smile was calm, almost paternal. "Go ahead. Kill an unarmed senior NCO in cold blood. See how that plays out for your agency. You're a traitor. You've been selling American soldiers to China for 15 years. Prove it." Cross spread his hands. "The evidence in my safe gone. Burned the moment I realized Sarah was compromised. The two men outside private contractors with no connection to me. Everything that happened tonight is your word against mine. And Sarah is my daughter, a troubled woman with a history of mental instability who broke into my home, attacked me, and had to be restrained for her own safety." Cross's voice was smooth, practiced. "I have documentation going back years, medical records, incident reports, all carefully prepared for exactly this moment." Maya's finger tightened on the trigger. Every instinct screamed at her to end this, to put a bullet in the monster's head and damn the consequences. But Cross was right. Without evidence, without witnesses, his death would only create more problems. The network would scatter, the intelligence would be lost, and Maya would spend the rest of her life in prison for murdering a decorated American soldier. "You think you've won," she said. "I know I have." Cross walked toward her slowly, confidently. "You're young Ms. Reyes. Talented, clearly. But you don't understand how the world really works. Men like me don't get caught. We have too many friends, too much leverage, too many people who depend on our silence." Men like Callahan thought the same thing. Callahan was a fool, emotional, reckless. Cross stopped 3 feet from Maya, close enough that she could see the absolute certainty in his eyes. "I'm neither." "Then why are you still talking?" For the first time, something flickered across Cross's face. Uncertainty, irritation. "What? If you've already won, why are you standing here explaining yourself? Why not just disappear? Let your contractors finish us and walk away clean." Cross's smile thinned. "Because I want you to understand. I want you to know that everything you've sacrificed, your parents, your childhood, your future, was for nothing. The network will continue, the intelligence will flow, and no one will ever know how close you came." Maya lowered her weapon. Cross's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing? You're right. Shooting you solves nothing." Maya set the gun on the floor and kicked it away. "So let's talk, like professionals. There's nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about." Maya held up her bloody wrists. "You've been planning this for months, preparing for every contingency, building a case against your own daughter? That's not the behavior of someone who's confident. That's the behavior of someone who's scared." "I'm not scared of anything." "You're scared of being forgotten, of being ordinary." Maya watched his face, looking for the cracks. 25 years of service, and what do you have to show for it? A house you'll never retire in. A daughter who despises you. A legacy built on betraying the very people you swore to protect. I protected this country. You sold it. Piece by piece, soldier by soldier. Maya stepped closer. How many died because of you, Cross? How many families got that phone call because you needed money you couldn't spend? Those soldiers were weak, expendable. The ones who mattered survived. The ones who mattered. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what's funny? My father said almost the same thing. The strong survive. The weak get filtered out. Cross's expression shifted. Your father, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reyes, Team 4, killed by compromised intelligence 14 years ago. Maya met his eyes without flinching. Your intelligence. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Operation Blackwater, 2011. A SEAL team was ambushed in Yemen because someone sold their insertion coordinates to Al-Qaeda. Maya's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. I spent 8 years tracking that leak, 8 years building a case, 8 years waiting for this moment. Cross's mask cracked. Just for a second. Just long enough for Maya to see the fear beneath. You can't prove anything. I don't have to prove it. I just have to make you believe I can. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked, damaged when Cross's men had thrown her in the trunk, but still functional. This has been recording since I walked through that door. Your confession, your threats, your admission that you burned evidence and fabricated a case against your own daughter. That recording is inadmissible. You didn't have a warrant. I don't need it to be admissible. I just need it to exist. Maya smiled. By tomorrow morning, this recording will be on the desk of every major news outlet in the country, every military blog, every congressional oversight committee. Your friends in the Pentagon won't be able to protect you when the whole world is watching. Cross moved fast, faster than Maya expected. His hand closed around her throat, slamming her against the wall. Give me the phone. Maya couldn't breathe. Spots danced at the edges of her vision, but she forced herself to smile. Already uploaded. Cloud backup. Kill me, and it goes live in 6 hours automatically. Cross's grip tightened. You're bluffing. Want to bet your career on it? Behind him, Sarah stirred. Maya saw her push herself up, saw her eyes focus on the gun lying forgotten on the floor. Keep him talking. Just a few more seconds. You know what I don't understand. Maya gasped. Why turn traitor? You had everything. Career, reputation, power. Why risk it all for money you couldn't even spend? You wouldn't understand. Try me. Cross's grip loosened slightly, just enough for Maya to breathe. Because I deserved more, he said, his voice low and bitter. 25 years of service, 3 Bronze Stars. I trained thousands of soldiers, shaped the future of the Army. And what did I get? A pension that barely covers rent, a pat on the back, and a cheap watch at retirement. So you sold out your country for a better retirement plan? I sold out nothing. I traded information, intelligence that would have been gathered anyway by someone else eventually. Cross's face twisted. I just made sure I got paid for it. And the soldiers who died, casualties of war, acceptable losses. Like my father. Cross's eyes met Maya's. In them she saw something that made her blood run cold. Recognition. Marcus Reyes. Cross said the name slowly, tasting it. Team 4, Yemen. I remember now. Remember what? He was good. One of the best I ever saw. That's why the price was so high. Cross's lips curved into a smile. $20,000. That's what his life was worth. Not bad for a single coordinate set. Maya's vision went red. She didn't remember breaking free of his grip. Didn't remember driving her knee into his stomach, her elbow into his face, her fist into his ribs again and again, until he was on the ground and she was standing over him, her whole body shaking. Maya, stop! Sarah's voice cut through the rage. Maya looked up and saw her standing there, the gun in her hands pointed not at Maya, but at her father. He's not worth it, Sarah said. He's not worth destroying yourself. He killed my father. Maya's voice was barely recognizable. He admitted it. He sold my father for $20,000. And if you kill him, you become exactly what he always said you were. A weapon, a tool, something to be used and discarded. Sarah's voice was steady despite the tears running down her face. Is that what your father would have wanted? Maya looked down at Cross. He was groaning, trying to push himself up, blood streaming from his broken nose. Pathetic. Weak. Stripped of all his power and leverage, he was just an old man who had made terrible choices. She could end him. Right here, right now. One punch to the right spot, and he would never hurt anyone again. But Sarah was right. Her father wouldn't have wanted this. Her father had believed in justice in the system, in doing things the right way even when the wrong way was easier. Maya stepped back. "Call it in," she said to Sarah. "Tell them everything. The network, the safe, the confession. The recording. Real, not uploaded yet, but it will be if anything happens to either of us." Maya pulled out the cracked phone. "Insurance, something your father should have taught you about." Sarah made the call. Within minutes, the sound of helicopters filled the air. Wolf arrived with the extraction team 20 minutes later. He found Maya sitting outside the building, staring at nothing, her bloody hands resting on her knees. "You're alive," he said, dropping down beside her. "Apparently. The recording, Chen has it, should be enough for a full prosecution." "More than enough." Wolf was quiet for a moment. "He confessed to your father's death. He bragged about it." Maya's voice was hollow. $20,000. That's what my dad's life was worth to him." Wolf didn't say anything. He just sat there, solid and present, while the extraction team moved around them. Cross was loaded into a transport vehicle, bound and gagged, his eyes wild with the sudden realization that his world was ending. Sarah went with the FBI agents who arrived to take her statement, her face a mask of exhausted grief. It was over. 14 years of rage, 8 months of undercover work, 3 weeks of impossible danger, all of it finally finished. "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Now you rest, heal, let the system do its job." "And then?" Wolf was silent for a long moment. "That's up to you. Chen wants to talk to you about next steps. There are other networks, other predators." "There always are." "Yes." Wolf stood offering her his hand. "But for tonight we won. That counts for something." Maya took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Her whole body ached, her wrists throbbed, her head still pounded from the blow that had knocked her unconscious. But she was alive. Sarah was alive. And William Cross was going to spend the rest of his life in a cell knowing that everything he built had been destroyed by a 20-year-old girl he had dismissed as invisible. "It counts for everything," Maya said quietly. 3 months later, Maya sat in Deputy Director Chen's office at CIA headquarters, watching the rain streak down the windows. "The trial concluded yesterday," Chen said. "Cross received 4 consecutive life sentences, no possibility of parole. And Sarah, cleared of all charges. She's been offered a position with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Fresh start, new assignment." Maya nodded slowly. She had visited Sarah once, 2 weeks after the Texas operation. They had talked for hours about guilt and grief, and the impossible weight of family betrayal. Sarah had thanked her. Maya hadn't known how to respond. "There's something else," Chen said. "The investigation into Cross's network revealed something we didn't expect." "What?" Chen slid a folder across the desk. Maya opened it and felt her breath catch. A photograph. 2 men standing together in front of a military helicopter. One was William Cross, 15 years younger. The other was her father. They served together, early in Cross's career before he turned. Chen's voice was gentle. "According to the records, your father was the one who recommended Cross for his first instructor position." Maya stared at the photograph, her father's smile, the casual arm around Cross's shoulder. 2 men who looked like brothers standing at the beginning of careers that would lead in very different directions. "Does this change anything?" Chen asked. Maya was quiet for a long moment. "No," she finally said. "My father believed in people, trusted them. That's not a flaw, that's what made him a good soldier and a good man." She closed the folder. "Cross betrayed that trust. That's on him, not my father. You've grown a lot in the past year. I've survived a lot in the past year." Maya looked up. "What happens now?" Chen leaned back in her chair. That depends on what you want. You've earned a rest, Maya. A real one. The agency will provide resources, new identity relocation, whatever you need to build a normal life. Is that what you're recommending? That's what I'm offering. Chen's eyes were unreadable. But I know you well enough to know that normal isn't what you're looking for. Maya thought about Daniel Martinez, who had graduated BUD/S 2 months ago and was now preparing for his first deployment. She thought about the 47 candidates at Coronado whose futures had been protected. She thought about Sarah Cross, who had lost everything, but gained something more valuable, the truth. There are more networks, Maya said. More predators hiding in uniforms. More young soldiers being exploited by people they trust. Yes. And you need people who can stop them. Yes. Maya stood and walked to the window. The rain was heavier now, turning the world gray and formless. Somewhere out there in bases across the country, instructors were shaping the next generation of American warriors. Most of them were good people, dedicated, honorable. Some of them were monsters. I spent 14 years preparing for revenge, Maya said quietly. I thought when it was over I would feel complete, satisfied, at peace. Do you know? Maya turned to face Chen. I feel like I'm just getting started. Chen smiled. Not her professional smile, something warmer, more genuine. Then welcome to the rest of your career, Officer Reyes. Maya accepted the handshake and felt something settle inside her chest. Not peace exactly, but purpose. What's my first assignment? Fort Bragg, Special Forces Training Command. We've identified a pattern similar to Cross's early behavior. Chen handed her a new folder. Different methodology, smaller scale, but potentially connected to the same foreign intelligence apparatus. Maya opened the folder. Another face. Another predator. Another mission. When do I leave? Tonight, if you're ready. Maya thought about everything she was giving up. The chance at a normal life. A family. A future that didn't involve lies and violence and the constant weight of being someone else. Then she thought about the faces she had saved. Daniel Martinez, Sarah Cross, the 47 candidates at Coronado who would never know how close they had come to destruction. The math worked. The mission mattered. And somewhere in North Carolina, young soldiers were trusting their instructors with their futures. I'm ready. Wolf was waiting in the hallway when Maya emerged from Chen's office. He looked different, rested, almost relaxed. The haunted quality that had defined him during the Coronado operation had faded, replaced by something quieter. Fort Bragg, he said. Not a question. Chen told you. Chen tells me everything. I'm your handler for this one. Wolf fell into step beside her as they walked toward the elevator. New cover identity, new target, same mission. Does it ever get easier? The work, yes, with practice. The weight. Wolf shook his head. No, that you carry forever. They reached the elevator. Maya pressed the button and watched the numbers climb. I found something, Wolf said. In Cross's files. A letter he wrote, but never sent. To who? Your father, dated 3 days before the Yemen operation. Wolf pulled an envelope from his jacket. I thought you should have it. Maya took the envelope. Her father's name was written on the front in Cross's precise handwriting. What does it say? I didn't read it. That's between them. Wolf paused. And you, if you choose. The elevator arrived. Maya stepped in the envelope, heavy in her hands. Thank you, she said. For what? For giving me the choice. Wolf nodded once. The doors closed between them. Maya opened the envelope during the flight to Fort Bragg. Her hands were steady. She had learned to control her emotions during 8 months of undercover work. But her heart was pounding. The letter was short. Handwritten. Dated August 12, 2011. Marcus, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not dead, just disappeared into a life you wouldn't recognize. I want you to know that I tried. For years, I tried to be the man you believed I was. The instructor, the mentor, the soldier who put country above everything. But the country doesn't love us back, Marcus. It uses us, discards us, forgets us the moment we're no longer useful. I'm tired of being forgotten. You'll think I'm making excuses. Maybe I am. But understand this, I didn't choose this path because I hate what we stood for. I chose it because I finally realized that what we stood for was a lie. There are no heroes, Marcus. Only survivors. I'm choosing to survive. I'm sorry. William. Maya read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Cross was wrong. There were heroes. Her father had been one of them. Wolf. Sarah. The countless soldiers who served without recognition, sacrificed without reward, protected without expecting gratitude. The country wasn't perfect. The system wasn't fair. But the people inside it, the ones who believed, who served, who gave everything they had, they were worth protecting. Maya tucked the envelope into her bag and looked out the window at the clouds below. Somewhere ahead, Fort Bragg was waiting. A new identity, a new mission, a new predator who thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. They were all wrong. Because Maya Reyes had spent 14 years learning how to be invisible. And invisible people saw everything. 2 weeks later, Maya, now Elena Vasquez, civilian administrative assistant, served coffee at a command meeting and listened to Colonel Harrison Brooks discuss training protocols with his subordinates. He was charming, professional, respected. He was also receiving payments from an offshore account linked to Russian intelligence. Maya smiled and refilled his cup. Thank you, Elena. You're a lifesaver. Just doing my job, sir. Brooks returned to his meeting. Maya returned to her cover. The work continued. The mission went on. And somewhere in the quiet depths of her memory, Maya heard her father's voice. The strong survive, but the good endure. She intended to do both. 6 months after Fort Bragg, Maya stood at her parents' graves. It was the first time she had visited since their deaths. The headstones were simple military issue, identical to thousands of others in Arlington. Marcus Reyes, Elena Reyes, beloved parents, faithful servants. Maya placed a single white rose between the stones. I finished it, she said quietly. Cross is in prison. Callahan is in prison. The networks they built are destroyed. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere a bird called. I know you would tell me to stop, to find a normal life, to let someone else carry this weight. Maya touched her father's headstone. But I can't. There are still monsters out there hiding in uniforms, hurting people who trust them. Someone has to stop them. She stood in silence for a long moment. I hope you're proud of me. I hope you understand why I can't stop. I hope wherever you are, you know that your sacrifice mattered. Maya straightened and looked out over the rows of white headstones. Thousands of lives, thousands of stories, thousands of families who had given everything. I'm your daughter, she said, and daughters don't quit. She walked away from the graves with dry eyes and steady hands. The mission was waiting. It was always waiting. But for one moment, standing among the honored dead, Maya Reyes had allowed herself to remember why she fought. Not for revenge. Not anymore. For justice. For the voiceless. For the ones who couldn't protect themselves. For the 20-year-old kitchen workers and the confused recruits, and the daughters who had to choose between family and country. For everyone who had ever trusted someone in uniform and been betrayed. Maya Reyes walked out of Arlington National Cemetery and climbed into a waiting car. Chen was inside another folder in her hands. New assignment. Always. Chen handed her the folder. Ready. Maya opened it. Another face, another base, another monster. She smiled. Always. The car pulled away, carrying her toward the next mission, the next identity, the next fight. Behind her, the graves stood silent and eternal. Ahead, the work continued. Because some people were born to be invisible. And Maya Reyes had learned to use that invisibility as a weapon. Not for destruction, for protection. Not for revenge, for justice. Not for herself, for everyone who would never know her name. She was the girl nobody noticed, the kitchen worker nobody remembered, the 20-year-old who had taken a punch from a decorated senior chief and destroyed his entire world within 7 minutes. And she was just getting started. The predators thought they were untouchable, thought their uniforms protected them, thought no one was watching. They were wrong. Someone was always watching. And her name was Maya Reyes.